Hello, everybody out there. You are connected to SNN, that's Street News Now. Catch us every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's 8 p.m. Central and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. How you doing, everybody? There's five guys and you. So it's you, and you're there in the corner. Stop what you're doing over there and pay attention to the program. You catch us every Thursday, of course. Go to Street News Now on our YouTube channel, and you must subscribe, like, and share. Make sure you do that. Lee Michael's on assignment. He's doing something we cannot expose right now, but I can, of course, bring the other gentlemen that make this program what it is. And so I'm going to bring on, of course, the following people who make this what it is. And so let me get this together. So get that. And there we go. So you see, this is the box format that we have because this is what we do. And it's, again, it takes me back to my youth watching the Brady Bunch. Except it was all bald black men. So it's all bald black men Brady Bunch. So we're making it do what it do here on Street News Now. And so as I go around to the panel, they're going to tell you what and who they are and what topic they're going to talk about tonight. So again, let's make this do what it do. I hope you are here. Once you type into the conversation there in the comment section and be a part of the program. Dr. Ron Ford. Doctor, how you doing?
I am doing fine, man. I am still glad to be alive and glad to hang out with my brothers on a Thursday night. And man, we're going to talk about the Olympics, whether it's fair or unfair. We're going to just leave it right there. How's that?
Sounds good. Now, the guy below me is wearing a white shirt today. We've got to tell Professor Reggie Miles, is it black shirts or white shirts or purple shirts? We just show up with a shirt on. Francisco, a.k.a. Chocolate Yaddah. How you doing, sir?
Oh, another day in paradise. All good.
And that's great. That's fantastic. Thank you for being here as always, brother. And, of course, Professor Reggie Miles, he doesn't really have any topics. He just shows the hell up. But I know he has a rant that he wants to give to us tonight, which is no different than any other night. But he wants to give us a rant. So what is the rant about, Professor?
Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here. You know, rants change from moment to moment, and I think I shouldn't have told you guys about that rant because I done ran out of gas on that one. But one thing that stays with me at all times,
yes,
and that question is laid out every week and every day. How is your funkentality? I want my funk uncut and undone. How's your funkentality? Are you on top of what's happening in the world today? So I'll figure out another rant as we go into the program because I know something is going to make me mad this evening.
Hey, you know what, Professor? I in all due deference, I don't think of what you do as ranting. I think of it as soliloquies.
Is that something that you drink?
and there he goes, pretending to be ignorant.
You said ignorant. No, he didn't say ignorant. Ignorant.
I apostrophe G.
Yes.
So
Oh man.
What you call it, Francisco? What you call it? So what? So what? Say it for me.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Oh, help. And I'll talk about, there's a special on CNN covering the story of late night television. But I want to talk about the historical fact of a very popular entertainer in 1968 who hosted the Tonight Show for 1 week. And I'll tell you who he is coming up next. But right now, Dr. Ron, you have the floor. You have to say something, Professor?
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
I've been wondering, is Arsenio seen in the history of this late night television?
Not yet. He's been in the trailers.
Okay. They do got it. They do have him in. Okay, cool.
Yes, they do.
I won't be mad at that then.
Okay, great. You'll pick something else to be mad at, so that's not a problem.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Long as they got him in there, you understand? Because they got to have him in there. Because as long as they have one of us in there, as long as they got somebody in there, then I'm good. All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
There
be
you
too
go.
mad.
No, that's great. So let's go on to Dr. Ron. You have the floor. Dr. Ron, open up, man. Tell us what you got on your plate right there.
Okay. I was browsing the internet as I often do, and I ran across a news report on this week talking about the Olympics bans Black Lives Matter apparel and could punish athletes for social protest. And that just kind of, rubbed me the wrong way a little bit because I'm thinking to myself, we know that this was targeted at America, okay? Because I don't think they got Black Lives Matter paraphernalia, going around anywhere else in the world, but there's been a battle cry in the United States. So for the Olympics governing committees to put, punishment or sanctions or whatever they feel like that they want to make this an issue, I'm like, man, that's a problem for me, and I wanted to bring it to the panel discussion to talk about this because we know athletes study their whole entire life to prepare for that moment to be on that stage, on that world stage with whatever talent that they have. And we also know that this is going to be in Tokyo coming up in the next 3 or 4 months, whenever they decide to do it. And, for the Olympics committee to premeditatedly say that any athlete is going to be punished. Okay, notice the word I'm using, punished. For bringing what their social consciousness may be, and what they may want to exhibit during their time on the world stage. Me personally, I think that's a targeted attack, and it brings back to mind for me, the brothers that stood on the gold and the silver platform receiving their gold, and they raised their hand in salute, in protest to what was going on in the United States. So, I know all of us are old enough to remember that. That was something that took place in all of our lifetime, and I think that we're at that point where, it's going to be an opportunity for them to be able to, raise their hand in rebellion against the United States of America's God Bless America or Pledge of Allegiance or whatever they choose to protest. I think that's their right and privilege that nobody should take away from them, you know? So go
Hey,
at it,
Ron,
fellas.
may I ask a question, Ron?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Do you recall who else was on the podium with the two black men?
Yes, I do. I do remember there was a one white man. Yes, it was.
And he
Yes.
also joined in on the protest. Do you remember the consequence that they all shared for doing that demonstration?
Yes, they all suffered career and public lynching. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
lynching might be a strong word, but the Olympic Committee did punish them. And so the Olympics is doing what it's always done. And they have a right, like any company, to set standards. And if they're only barring America from doing these types of protests, then I would agree with you. But they have had this overarching policy for as long as I can remember.
So do you think it's not time for some reconsiderations of these type of policies, especially with the way the world profile is?
I think it's always time for reconsideration of a policy, but that doesn't mean that the policy is necessarily wrong. I mean, at schools, at offices, at different companies, they are allowed to create dress codes, many of which don't make any sense at all. They're allowed to talk about conduct in the workplace, So I'm just wondering why the Olympic Committee is not allowed to set standards for their business.
Well, I would say that I think that they need to be more sensitive to the people that they have involved on their platform. Okay, that's what I would put it. It's just like when like you mentioned, businesses or corporations. Just use as an example, some companies used to object to people of color coming to work with dreads on wearing dreads. They
Mm-hmm.
would say, okay, if you want to work here, you got to change your hair.
Right.
Or women that
And courts
were
of law have determined that those things were incorrect. So, what law is the Olympic Committee breaking?
well, I'm not saying that they're breaking a law. I just said it's a principle and a policy.
Got it.
You
Okay.
know
So
that
what
that
what's so
that,
what's
that should
different about
be.
them? They're a business, right? So their
Are they?
sensitivity, of course they are. The Olympic Committee's a business. They are
Okay.
a for-profit business. So their sensitivity is to their profit, like every other business. So are we now going to dictate the policies that businesses can have if they're not illegal? I mean, if a company has an illegal or discriminatory policy, of course those things need to be addressed. But I'm just wondering what category you find this in, because I mean, to me
So
this is a
so
non-issue, but I get where you're coming from. But I'm just trying to zero in on what you
uh
think the actual issue is.
so being a corporation and people have a right to be able to express their political opinions in any way that they see fit. So if they approach a Black Lives Matter T-shirt during whatever event that they want to wear it in, that's voicing their social consciousness and what they believe
Right.
in.
Right, but
You know.
that's a bit of a faulty presupposition that you just presented.
Okay.
Okay, we have to look at this in the context of a business, right? In the context of a business, companies have a right to put out policies about conduct in their business, right? We've all experienced that. You just can't wear what you want to wear when you go to work. The company tells you, hey, like I worked for several multi-billion-dollar corporations, and they all had a dress code. And I found the dress code hilarious because I was literally only allowed to show my face and my hands. That was it. I had to be in a suit with a buttoned-up shirt, a tie. Nothing, literally nothing showed except my hands and my face. And women could dress like they were going to the club, which I loved because I love seeing women dressed like that, but I just thought it was a ridiculous policy. But it was still an allowable policy, and it was based on the shareholders of the business, the corporate leadership of the
Hmm.
business. So I'm just saying that, and I'm not voting up or down, right or wrong on this right now. What I'm saying is, what is the Olympic Committee doing as a business that is different from any other business? And is what they're doing inherently wrong?
I think the people that are on this stage. Okay, let's just go one step further. Let's bring it closer to home. The NBA. When Black Lives Matters, they protested. They walked off the court during a basketball game. In protest to what was going on. Violence in the world against people of color. So the NBA is a business. The
Mm-hmm.
NBA is a corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and the NBA stood with their
Right. And that
players
was their
and
choice.
supported what they represented at that particular time
And
and in
and
that
that was their
moment.
choice. And the NBA could have said, we don't want that.
Yeah, and they did for so many years, just like the
Okay, so
NFL.
so
Just
they
like the
so this is
NFL.
the exercise of individual companies based on their thought process, their philosophy, their beliefs, their sensibilities, their sensitivity, whatever it is. So again, my question to you is, is the Olympic Committee inherently wrong for their decision to say because remember what the Olympics partly is about is a substitute for war. Okay. And so they've always created an environment that was apolitical for that reason. And so they've always been sensitive to this kind of thing. So why is it that suddenly now it's wrong?
Well,
If it is in fact wrong.
and nobody has declared it wrong. I just says I think that sometimes you have to stand back or pull back depending on the message of the political statement. Going all the way back, going back to earlier Olympics, and Reggie ought to be old enough to remember this. You know, when Jesse Owens, went to Germany and kicked Hitler in the mouth by beating his top-notch Germans in every track or field event. Okay, so it was a statement being made that was heard.
But he wasn't making a political statement. He was being an athlete doing his job.
Exactly, but the effects of it.
Okay, but we're not talking about that though. You raised the issue
Yes,
of
I did.
the Olympic Committee policy. So
Yes.
let's focus on that. What is the Olympic Committee doing that is incorrect?
I think that they ought to respect the political views of any athlete that chooses to participate in the Olympics.
Okay, so then that means that Nazis can go and say we believe in white supremacy because that's a political view, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you want that at the Olympics?
Well, I don't have a problem with it. If they feel like they're bad enough and bold enough to go up there and jump up there with a Nazi, because political freedom is just that. It's a freedom and a choice.
The committee is not impinging anybody's political freedom.
Well,
what they're saying is when you're participating with our company, these are the standards that we have.
So it just should be about, well, listen, jumping, running, jumping, spinning, and that's all. That's all they talk.
It's an athletic competition. That's what the Olympics is. And what it should or should not be is something I don't like to debate. I don't get into those words should and shouldn't. I get where you're coming from though, but what I'm saying is this is an athletic competition, and if you notice, look around the different sports franchises, even in just America. Some franchises allow something, some don't. Right? The NFL might say, we feel this way about something. Look at how they responded to Colin Kaepernick. And the Major League Baseball might feel another way. You know what I mean? So there's different sensitivities and sensibilities with regard to the business owners. Because again, no matter what we're talking about, no matter the arena, no matter the environment, these are businesses. And business owners are always protecting their profits. So if the Olympic Committee feels like, hey, man, we don't want all this craziness breaking out, because, again, if one political statement is allowed, then all political statements are allowed.
And that's a good point.
Frankly, I don't want people given the white power symbol at the Olympics because that's their political statement.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I get your point. If one is allowed, all should be allowed. And that's a very valid, when you're dealing, but on a world stage like that, what's, socially acceptable and what's not, that's another thing that you can look at. I just thought to say that it's going to be a punishment. What that punishment is, I did not get into any of the details of what the punishment, what they're going to take their medal away from them.
Yeah, that's basically what the Olympics does. If you don't act right, they did it to Ali. They did it, a lot of people. Look, people fail drug tests and the Olympic Committee takes their medal away. They have their standards. We might not agree with all their standards, but they have a right to have them. And basically, if you really want to stand in your convictions, and not participate. You can say, hey, you know what, Olympic Committee, I'm a world-class athlete and I disagree with your position. I'm not going to participate. Countries have boycotted the Olympics before.
Yes, they have.
So
Yeah.
everybody has a right to their voice, is my
So
point.
in other words, you can't come in my house and tell me how to run my house.
Basically.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to have a national front. And let's go along with the business aspect. So let's go back to the '92 Olympics with the first Dream Team. Of course, Magic, Larry Bird, and and Michael Jordan. So the sponsor of all athletic gear was Reebok. So when they won the gold, they had to go up, get the flowers and the gold medals. So the guys that were wearing Reebok could not show it. They had to take the American flag and cover over their shoulder to not show the Reebok sign, because you had Magic with Converse, you had Michael Jordan with Nike, and such forth. So first and foremost is the business. I get that, especially from a standpoint of we want to present our country the way we want to. Now, despite what's going on in the country with Black Lives Matter or anything else, from their lens, once again, you don't want to upset the apple cart when it comes to, you got all major advertisers in here as well. Not only the sporting goods, so I have to tell you that. So when you talk about how everything looks on the national front, you want all the ducks in a row, all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed, and you don't want anything to give any type of upsetting situation. They don't want that. It's bad for business. Right. Now, you're right. A person should express themselves, and it's like, the whole thing about freedom of speech, but how much does it cost? It will cost you. Mm-hmm. Go back to what you said, Francisco Bob Ali and his medal. Anytime you take a political stance on that type of stage, you will get burned.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Valid point.
Yeah.
Valid
point. And I might have been misremembering about Ali. Did they take it or did he throw it out? I forget.
Well, he threw it out, but he threw it out, but in his situation, that was like the precursor to him not serving in the Vietnam War, if you think about it.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, my overall point was solid.
Yeah, no. It's not an invalid point, but going into the next couple of months, we know that Black Lives Matter is a very hot topic in the United States. And beyond, so to specifically call them out by name, they didn't say no political statements. They said Black Lives Matter will not be tolerated as a slogan on any apparel. Mm-hmm. So that very, very specifically points a finger at Black people or people that support Black people in the United States of America. So,
I haven't seen the statement. I'd have to take a look at it. You could very well be right.
I need to ask a question about that. I need to be clear on the origin of Black Lives Matter, because I don't want to be worshiping the statement and then not knowing the origin of Black Lives Matter. See, because we can all get on this thing on Black Lives Matter. Okay, but who created this organization? Where did they come from? Okay, and I want to know the root of this thing as opposed to just dealing with the hype, because the immortal poet from the group Public Enemy always told me to don't believe the hype. So I want to know the origin of this thing. Who created this Black Lives Matter? Where do they come from?
Well, there's tons of information about that. I mean, is this a rhetorical question or an actual question?
I mean, listen, this is an actual question because I want to know, because I've never paid any attention to that.
Gotcha.
Human lives matter. So, but I'm not going to go off to that. I'm not going on.
Not in America, though. Not all human lives matter in America.
Listen, that's nothing new. That is nothing new.
Okay, but that doesn't mean it can't be addressed, and an organization came up and addressed it.
Yeah, I mean, but because a lot of times organizations come up and they could be used for other. Just because the organization comes up, that doesn't mean that it's supposed to benefit us.
Agreed, but so far, I have not been aware of anything negative that Black Lives Matter has been associated with. I know they've been investigated by the State Department and the Department of Justice and the FBI, and they've nothing's come up. No one
Okay,
has
so
associated them with
how
either
come we don't
violence
know
or
who started?
looting.
How come we don't know who started this stuff? Then
Well, we do. It's like literally 1 30-second thing, search away. It's all there. It's all the information is there.
Well, let me look, cause if I'm dealing with an organization and I want to know, I mean, whoever started this thing should be at the top of my mind. I should be able to bring it out. See, because sometimes we can get so hooked up into the popular that really the real deal just goes past us. You know,
Agreed.
and it's like a magician's trick. They like showing us this Black Lives Matter.
Right. Well,
But
luckily
then
this
you
ain't three-card Monty. This is a real social issue, and it
Is
has
it?
actually done well. In my opinion, it is, and it's actually benefited, I think, Black and Brown Americans
But I ain't
because
black though.
that's fine. But the thing is that there are a lot of us that are, and a lot
What
of us are
country is
suffering
called
because of it.
black?
No, I get it. I get it, and this is a great semantical conversation.
Right. So
But to answer your first question, the organization, in my opinion, has created good awareness and good outcomes in terms of kind of pressuring America to come to terms with the reality of racism in America. Now, by itself, it's not going to move mountains, but it does move the needle a little bit. And again, this is my opinion. And I think it's necessary, and I think it's a force for good.
amen.
And you have to be careful of the people who latch on to say Black Lives Matter and infiltrate. So, for example, when you have lootings here in Chicago and other cities, you've had people protesting in the guise of Black Lives Matter, but there were, for example, here in Chicago when they was here in downtown. So you had them protesting peacefully, and then behind them were the ne'er-do-wells who were pretending to be a part of it, and then give the black eye. Yeah,
Absolutely.
See, that type of thing is just ridiculous, and we have to know.
But
the
agent
difference.
provocateurs have been around for a long, long time.
Oh, of course.
And here's the thing: let's be very clear. Protesters are protesting, rioters are rioting, looters are looting. They're three separate things, and they are not interchangeable. And we cannot hold Black Lives Matter responsible for people that seek to disrupt what they're doing. That's not on them. That's on the disruptors.
Correct.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So basically, whoever writing the checks, whoever got the money, got the power and the say-so over what can and cannot be done in every situation when it deals with business and, political statements and moving forward.
Well, you've heard it here for the first time on Street News Now. No one's ever heard that before, Ron. So good. You're breaking news, baby.
No. I was clarifying it in relationship to that issue.
Yeah.
About the Olympics committee.
Yeah.
And I yield the rest of my time.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm checking it out. It was 3 ladies.
Right.
Correct.
That formed this Black Lives.
Look at that. Took you no time at all.
Yeah, but see, I mean, it should have been. If we're gonna discuss it, then it should be at the top of our heads, because I don't want to I don't want to fall into this Black Lives Matter thing, because I'm not black. I'm not black. I refuse to be that. I want to be associated with a country, not with something that's painted, stained, or dyed. That's just how I feel about that, because even on the end result, you still not being respected because you still being killed every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. No matter how loud Black Lives Matter comes out, Black lives are still being killed. And it seems
exactly. And that's my point, Reggie. That's my point.
Let me finish. It still seems to be infuriating them. Associate me with a country. Let me find my nationality. And then that way I can say, as a Nigerian, my life matters. Or then I can say, as a person from Kenya, that my lives matter. You understand? This is how I perceive it to be. I'm not that's a great thing. And then when I check out the origin of these people that started, you know, and I don't want to get into pointing fingers on this, that, and other. Where the brothers starting the organizations at?
Okay, well, and something also that I would say about that, because every point you're making is 100% correct. I would say this: Shakespeare had a great line that was spoken by Juliet when she was considering the feud between her family and Romeo's family, the Montagues and the Capulets. And she came up with this idea about how a name is not the most important thing. She said, that which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So while your point is well taken, and I agree 100%, I would focus on the function rather than the form, for me personally. And the function is, as you say, people are dying. That's the function. What we call those people, as significant as it might be, is not as significant as the fact that those people are being killed.
The conversation obviously goes into different tangents, but obviously trying to go in the same direction to find a solution. So let me piggyback on what Yaddah said about quoting Shakespeare. I'll quote Shakespeare from Hamlet. When the three witches in the cabal know double, toil and trouble, something wicked this way comes. And that's racism. So
yeah, that's Macbeth, I believe. But yes,
Macbeth?
I did say that.
Okay, yeah. Macbeth Hamlet. Okay. All right. I fucked up. Anyway, it's Shakespeare, motherfucker. Anyway, so
you get a demerit, Chris.
Yeah, right. So I want to roll to you. Okay, fuck. I made a mistake. So my point is, at least I'll cop to mine. Okay, I made a mistake. So my thing is, when you look at the scenario around you, again, it's a matter of fighting, and again, it's a matter of voice. But again, it's a scenario going back to what we said earlier about Black Lives Matter, concerning with the Olympics and things like that. Not everybody wants to hear that, especially on a national stage. Again, it's like, look, it's shut up and dribble, shut up and run, shut up and do the following, and then add your sport afterwards. It's a lot at stake when you talk about the components of how America is and how we're presented in this type of situation with Olympics and again the national stage and how we're presented, how we look. So we got to make sure everything is cool in the gang. We don't need a disruption. We don't need someone to come after us. We're trying to keep it nice and tight.
Right. Y'all know I can't when it comes to being and I'm good. Now I agree. I'm happy for the Black Lives Matter and stuff, but it's just one statement that just stays locked in my mind. A black man has no right to which a white man is bound to respect. That's like in my head. So why am I keep calling myself black when I don't have no rights to which a white man is bound to respect? Why do I do that? Why do I do that? That's like Einstein's. I mean, that's like the definition of insanity. You doing the same thing and you expecting change. What? I want to cuss. I can't wait till we get to the green room.
I just cussed. So you might as well go on and cuss. And look, cussing is almost like a prerequisite around here to a degree. So
to a degree. Look, and I just want to say, y'all some intelligent ass brothers. Y'all know Shakespeare, Macbeth, and all this other stuff. Man, I'm in the wrong.
I'll tell you what else I know, Ron. I know a stripper whose name is trying to keep it nice and tight.
All righty, now we didn't turn the corner.
We're back to stripper names.
Y'all gonna make me quote James Brown.
All right, come on, James. hey, we done turned the corner now.
Yeah, well, it's already turned. Good night. We go what? SNN gonna stand for stripper names now.
He
is going to kick all of our asses for this, man.
He gonna get never mind.
I'm gonna make you gentlemen a promise, and in absentia, I'm going to make Lee the same promise. Before next week, I am going to design a T-shirt that says "Stripper Names Now."
All right,
guaranteed.
All right, all right. Well, you know that's one of Chris's things, boy. He loves putting slogans on T-shirts. He said that ought
Oh,
to
I
be
thought
on
you were going
a
to say he
T-shirt.
loves strippers. Oh,
No, no,
okay.
no. He loves
Just
putting slogans
checking.
on
I
T-shirts.
wouldn't hold
Yeah.
it against you. I love him
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, he used to tell me back in the day, I used to have this slogan. I used to say, about Viagra. Like I got Viagra and I'm not afraid to use it. He said that ought to be on a T-shirt.
I did. I did. And let's rein the show very slowly back into some sort of contention.
Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
Dr. Ron, give us the ID, please.
Yes, you are listening to the Street News Now Thursday night show, Five Guys and You. We have Mr. Chris Bass filling in for the legend, the BoomShockalaka. We've got our brother all the way out on the East Coast, New Jersey to be named, because I know y'all want to know where the hell he at. Francisco, a.k.a. Chocolate Yoda, the professor, hanging out all the way in Chicago on the South Side, and myself. I don't know where the hell I'm at, but I'm glad y'all here hanging out with us. And we are moving over to you now, Chris. We're going to you now.
Yeah, I'll go on and take the topic now.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother. So SNN, Street News Now is not covering this, and not strippers now, no. Street News Now. CNN is having a docuseries on currently called The Story of Late Night. So it goes into its history and how late night started and how it's become really a copy format for years starting in the 50s on television. So and a lot of us know that down the road it started, of course, beginning with Steve Allen on NBC, and then it went to a guy named Jack Parr, and then it went to Johnny Carson, who became the king of late night, hosted for 30 years straight. During this time in February 1968, an unlikely person came in to fill in for Carson for 1 week, and that person was Harry Bellefonte. During this time, he filled in for 1 week. He had total autonomy of the show. So he was introduced, of course, by Ed McMahon. He would come in and do a song, go to commercial break, come back. He's at the desk with the mic with his guest. And then sometime during this time, he would probably sing another song or show personal film footage of his family out in the summertime, swimming and on the boat and carrying it on, and really humanizing Black folk during this time. So once again, it's 1968, the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Two of the premier guests he had on during the week were Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy. Belafonte was very close to Dr. King, was able to have him on the show. And during that time, you never really saw Dr. King relax or telling a joke until that time. And so that's lost in history because NBC would always use the same tape and tape over their shows every week. They just always take the same tape. For example, this happened before Harry Bellefonte's Time on the Night Show. When Johnny was the host, they would take the tape, record for that week, take the same tape, record for the next week. Everything was recorded over. And so the only thing that was left of his time of Belafonte was his interview with Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy. And it's very historical because in 1968, both men were unfortunately assassinated. And that was really like one of the last times we saw them in that type of format with Harry Bellefonte as the host. It's currently available on the Peacock Network. And if you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. The great thing about Belafonte being a singer and an actor and an activist, it's like at the time he couldn't think about anybody else who could take that role. I'm sure there are other people out there, but because of his magnitude, because he was a star, out there doing shows in Vegas and sang and did movies and everything else and musicals, it seemed as though the time he was on when I watched part of the documentary was the fact that it never been done before. You never saw an African American, a person of color, hosting a popular late night program. This is the guest list. And hang on, this is 1 week of him doing the show. This is the guest list. Lena Horne, Aretha Franklin, Diane Carroll, Nipsey Russell, not Nipsey Hussle, Nipsey Russell, Sidney Poitier, Paul Newman, Bill Cosby, and Wilt Chamberlain in 1 week. He was knocking out the park.
That's amazing.
amazing, knock out the park. And so when we look at the history of this, and once again, I'm a fan of late night since I can remember. I've never heard about this till last year. Last September, where I had no idea. And people who are in late night television had no idea this happened. And it's a continual point to realize that for me, being a fan of late night, and I was one when this happened. So, of course, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm trying to get a baby bottle. But then you fast forward down the road to Arsenio Hall in the 90s. And I'm sure, of course, that African American hosted between 1968 and into the late 80s, 90s of African American hosting a talk show, especially late night talk show. But to be successful at it, what would have happened if Harry Bellefonte was tapped to do a late night program during that time? Would they be accepted? We've seen, fortunately, other situations where, say, a Nat King Cole, who had a show on briefly, was taken off because a lot of the markets that dealt with this, especially in the South, would not accept an African-American host hosting a network program. But what would that have happened? What could have changed could have been if a network would stand by Harry Bellefonte? The fact he did it for 1 week is still historical. So when you look at the content of the history that has happened, it paved the way. Because another thing that was brought up in the documentary was he was one of the first, and it was done before, but one of the first to combine politics and entertainment. Not too many people were doing that during that time. Jack Paar before him, but more so when you look at what Belafonte was doing, of course, talking about the Civil Rights Movement. I think it was a fantastic point in history. And I throw out to the panel because if anybody that I think could have really made a difference had he had more time in that format, could have been Harry Bellefonte.
At that age, when in 68, I was thinking about girls then. I was partying. So late night. And I think in my house at that time, the most important people was Chet Huntley and David Brinkley. So the late nights, I didn't get into that. And then I had heard about it, but I didn't have the in-depth knowledge of it. So I'm gonna have to yield my time, and I'm gonna have to give it to Dr. Ron and see what he got to say.
This is right up Ron's alley, man. Have at it.
What makes y'all think I'm old enough to even remember 19?
Oh, stop it.
19 anything.
Oh, come on, man. They have eyes, don't they?
I think that, the networks, as the professor has always said, was not willing to allow people of color, to be on a national platform whatsoever. That was something that they did. It happened, like they say, a fluke in time. I remember when they tripped out when Bill Cosby was on with Robert Koch on I Spy. That was a big deal. When Diane Carroll was playing a successful nurse on an NBC sitcom, it wasn't, Julia, it was a sitcom, wasn't it?
And what do they all have in common, Dr. Ron?
They were people of color, okay?
Dr. Ron,
yes, sir.
Wait a minute. And base. I'm wondering why they didn't put the nod on Cos. Because Cos had been famous for I Spy before then. Didn't Cos end up doing Johnny later on?
He did.
Yeah,
he did. When Bill Cosby was on I Spy on NBC, he won 3 Emmys for that role as well. So he was already ensconced in the network. So yeah, down the road
he was already established as something else too.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't know. We don't know about that. That's
actually we do. Actually, we do, and I'll talk about it because I'll talk about whatever I feel like talking about.
Well,
so here's the thing. I know a lot of people in entertainment, and at high levels. I lived with someone who worked for Russell Simmons and all this, and when you talk to celebrities from that time, they will tell you that Bill Cosby had a reputation for doing what he was doing, which was drugging and raping women. He had that reputation. Women would tell each would warn each other, "Hey, don't be alone with that dude. He does funky stuff." All right, so same as it ever was.
But he wasn't the only one. It was the 70s. It was the 60s.
That's got nothing to do with it. The people are murdering too. Because there's more than one murderer, it's okay suddenly.
Now I'm gonna throw another name out there who had a bad reputation for doing crazy stuff. Sammy Davis Jr.
Was he accused of raping anybody?
Man, that boy was just as crazy in Vegas as Bill Cosby was.
Was he accused of raping anybody? I'm just
curious. It just never went public.
Okay, and he was, to my knowledge, he was never accused of raping anybody. So I don't see the relevance.
Well, no, the relevance is that it was a lot of things going on during that era and time period. And I'm not trying
rape was still illegal back then too.
Wait a minute. Let me just say this. I'm not trying to justify rape under no circumstance. Let me be clear about that. Okay. I'm just saying that there was a lot of things going on during those eras. Okay. That now people would call rape. Now people would call wrong. Okay. But it was,
they called it wrong then too. Rape was wrong then, wasn't it? Or is rape just newly wrong?
No, just the definition of it has changed.
Okay. So when you drug someone and have sex without their consent, is that a new definition for rape, or is that the old definition for rape?
Well, back then they used to say, wait a minute, I'm finna put this one out there. Back then they would call it a good time. Okay.
Who would? The guy or the victim
both.
Of the rape?
They would wake up and say, "Ooh, yeah." They would say, "Ooh, I had a good time."
So women enjoyed rape back then. Good to know.
Yeah,
okay.
Y'all gotta indulge me for a minute.
Come on, Professor.
I just gotta ask this question. This dude got a lot of money, right?
Which dude you talking about?
Mr. Cosby.
Okay,
money,
yes,
right?
yes.
How come he just didn't pay nobody, man?
He did.
And so when you pay somebody, it's still rape, right? I mean, help me out here.
I'm not clear on the question.
The question is this man got a lot of money. Why would he have to drug? All he had to do was give him some money.
Okay, but is that what he did? Forget about what he could have done. What did he do?
All he had to do was give them some money.
Okay, but he didn't do that.
But was we in the room, though? Were we there anywhere? Was either you or
all right? No, all 60 women are just making it up. I got you.
Listen,
a jury just got it wrong. I got you.
I ain't got nothing to do with that. But were you or I either there? Fuck no. I mean, no.
So a jury heard all the evidence. You weren't in the courtroom either. But a jury heard all the evidence. And he was convicted. So is it all just bull? Is it all just made up? Is it all just overblown? Or was he a rapist for decades?
The law is put down by liars. Is going through cases by liars. You hire a professional liar to defend you. And your professional liar is prosecuting you. That's just what it is.
Right.
A professional
and a liar, professional liar, to use your term, was also defending him. And I guess what does that mean?
It's nothing but a whole bunch of lies. And so
there's no facts. There's no facts here.
I don't know. So it gets thrown in the court of public opinion.
Well, no, it was actually in a real court. I don't know if you remember this, but he was in an actual court with a judge and a jury, and the jury convicted him.
Listen, all that stuff, they tell us all that, and we have to accept it because this is what it's all been based on. But listen, it's been a whole lot of games being played on us. That doesn't mean that man did that. We're just assuming because that's what people tell us. But were you there? No. Was I there? No. So we don't know. So all we dealing with is the court of public opinion. And based on how we feel about Mr. Cosby, this is where we take our stand. Some people didn't like him. So yeah, it's 69 with and me, I'm telling you, it's at least 10 of them that was worse looking than the picture on the iodine bottle.
Now, look, let me say this about that very same thing. It was said during that trial that the Cosby defense team was not allowed to present adequate evidence that he was not even in the country when they accused him of these rapes. Okay. And the Supreme Court, when the case got to the Supreme Court, they overturned and sent it back to a lower court to try and get this correct. Now, that was something that I've been
Wait, you're saying
following
that
over the last.
all 60 accusations he was out of the country?
We're just talking about the trial, not all 60 accusations. I'm just talking about the one that he was convicted of, the dates and the times that he was alleged to have performed these crimes. His attorney had evidence to prove that he was not even in the country and was not allowed to present that
that would be a
evidence.
first. I've never heard of that before, because
no, they've been talking about it because
I don't see that as accurate, but okay.
Well, that was the information that was presented to the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania.
I don't believe that. I can't see.
I'm just telling you what I read. Okay.
Okay, fine. And I read that the Earth is flat. That doesn't make it flat. So if there's evidence that can exonerate someone, and it's directly related to the accusations, they have to allow it. So I can't imagine this if there was evidence that could exonerate him, why wouldn't it be admissible unless it wasn't
at the original trial? It was not, okay, because it was a public lynching. Strong word. Okay. Yes, I know. Yeah. All right, but I was just wanted to address that because, like what Reggie was saying, we don't really know we only go by what they tell us in the beginning. So when it got to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that was what was presented. And Pennsylvania Supreme Court says, okay, based on this, what you are saying to us, this case needs to be revisited and looked over and possibly even overturned. So that was the platform in which they went after his appeal, because he did have evidence to prove.
Did he get an appeal?
From what I understand, I haven't looked at it lately, but from what I understand, that they were supposed to be overturning his, conviction. That's what I was told. Not told, but that's what I read. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, I haven't looked back on it like in the last week or so, or maybe even the last month, because this has been over a month since I read that information about that. So, once again, we can only go by what they, say and what information is being presented.
We have a few minutes left in the program. I want to throw this story out to the panel. Just came down the pipe today. A female middle student opened fire at classmates in Rigby, Idaho today. Two students and one adult was injured. The adult was treated and released at the Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center, while the two students, one boy and one girl, had non-life-threatening injuries. Both will remain in the hospital overnight and may require surgery. The sixth grader removed a handgun from her backpack and began firing just after 9 a.m. In the press conference, they said two people were shot in the school hallway before she was booed outside and another person was shot. A teacher disarmed the girl and held her until police arrived. Once its investigation is complete, Jefferson County Prosecuting Attorney Mark Taylor told reporters in his office will be filing appropriate charges, possibly including 3 counts of attempted murder. Again, we look at all this gun violence. A 6th grade girl took out a gun out of her backpack and started shooting. Your reaction, please.
That's crazy. That's the only thing you can say about that. A 6th grade little girl. That's crazy. Totally insane.
Got to be careful on what the kids see and hear, man. We got to start monitoring what's going on and, adding some type of balance, because, to go from 0 to 90 like that at that age, man, that's some deep stuff. That's some deep stuff. So we have to begin. Y'all don't push me towards this ownership thing. See, cause all these other folks owning stuff and they putting stuff on there telling us that this is what's supposed to happen for us. We got to have some balance and have some type of ownership somewhere. And so that we can start showing an alternative to it. The scales got to be balanced because, man, got to, a sixth grader with a gun going to shoot, and then, we got to find, there has to be some other type of problems to, some other type of videos or something that has to be made to show people how to deal with conflict in a different way. I forget, I had to call one of my colleagues, because I work with him, making some of them type of videos to have conflict resolution instead of us relying on our children to find out their solutions to their problems in the PS4 or whatever other video thing or whatever kind of perverted things that we have to be parents at that age. We have to be more vigilant over what our kids see and hear, take them cell phones away and, give them different monitoring times or whatever. Try to get some more constructive person-to-person type thing, because it's a lot of information out here. And just because that information is out here doesn't mean that it's all good. It's not all good information for these kids. So we have to, I think our parental responsibility now, we have to look at things and be more vigilant. Let me see what you're looking at on your cell phone. Let me see what you're doing on this computer. I got to look at this stuff. And then not taking it from a child to kind of like, being authoritarian, being a big time authority. But, when they're going through this, just start questioning them and getting to the point where you want to keep that trust. So just in case you do see them bending towards some kind of crazy way, you could kind of like reel them back in, talking to them with, have some intelligence and listen, maybe this might not be the right way, but you just can't say, oh, you can't be looking, you can't do it like that. We got to find a better way to get to them so we can, protect them. We got to convince them, look, it's good all this stuff is out here, but I'm trying to help protect you too, because if a sixth grader can come to the conclusion that they need to be shooting somebody, man, we got to start coming up with some stuff.
Well,
yeah, I've been covering these stories for years, and they get younger and younger. And and it's across the board now, whether it's college or high school or middle school, whatever, they get younger and younger. And then you question, once again, this story is still fresh. We don't have more information about where she got the gun from and things of that nature. But it seems like, and you're right, Professor, where to get the mentality that shooting a gun is the answer? Where does that come from? It's not like they put it on their own, but it had to come from somewhere. It could have come from the household or, once again, influence on television. And Barbara Jean had an interesting question, and I'll put it back up here, about the following. Wondering if she was bullied. So again, you got to take that into consideration as well, because look, back in the day when we were going to school, you had your 9 to 3:15, whatever time you went to school, and then you went home, and that was that. Nowadays, because of social media, you're bullied 24 hours a day, nonstop. And then you get other people come on board, social media-wise, to keep on with the bullying. So you never get a break. And so we've seen stories like this over time where people, unfortunately, go to violence, or I hate to say as well, kill themselves suicide-wise from that perspective as well. So there's a lot across the board, but I'm telling you, the age getting younger and younger is just beyond disbelief at this point.
Man, I'm so glad that I had some partners when I was young, man. I was so glad that I had a mastermind, group of friends and stuff. There was always the strong dude. There was always, the slickster. And, you knew all these characters, but it was one thing that we had in common in the day before computers and social media. If we was, as they say in the words today, if we was down with each other, and a bully tried to come in there, man, what you doing messing with Reggie? What's
Mhm.
up with that? And even if a new cat came in the neighborhood, trying to, we was all gonna jump, check him. It was gonna be 4-5 of us, man. And so where's these interpersonal relationships when we're young? Why is it that our children have to always feel like they're alone all the time? That's what's scary to me. I grew up as a baby, but as a baby of my family, my sisters and brothers, but I never felt alone. I never felt alone. So
Mhm.
how do we get our kids and keep them from feeling alone like that? So whereas the enemy can get inside their head and have them thinking crazy thoughts. I'm not no person that's no expert on mental, what they call that?
Psychology.
Yeah, not psychology, but that that when you're mentally ill, I'm not no person that's no expert on that,
Mhm.
but I do know that we got to keep our eyes wide open. And when there are questions, we need to ask questions. And if we're not capable, we need to seek to get, help for our kids, because it's like the story of some people like you might not know that your child is dyslexic or something like that,
Mhm.
that's seeing things another way. And then, as a parent, if you don't know anything about that dyslexia, all you know is that something's wrong. You need to get somebody that can help guide you to move forward, because you can't leave. It's too much information out here to leave these kids to their own vices. And you need to question them and talk to them all the
Yeah.
time.
And I'm going to keep this extremely short because I could talk for probably 2 hours on this subject, because what we have in intermingling forces is evolution, biology, and social media, which is a fairly new platform. Social media is a fairly young paradigm in the world and in America. It's less than 20 years, and it's probably not had a major influence for more than 10 or so years. And when you look at statistics on suicide, what you're seeing is a sharp rise in young girls committing suicide.
Mhm.
And when you look at the interactions that young girls in their preteens and teens have online, it can be disastrous. It can be vicious. It's bullying at the highest level. So bullying can be a component to this. But Chris, you asked an interesting question earlier about the idea of, what's influencing this? What are they seeing?
Mhm.
And I'll tell you one thing they're seeing for sure. And this unfortunately supersedes whatever's going on in the home, because America is an extraordinarily violent society. And I'm not talking video games,
Mhm.
I'm talking the nightly news.
Yes, that's
I'm
true.
talking about walking around and seeing people in uniforms with guns on them at all times. This is a violent society. And when you couple this very volatile element of social media and the very volatile element of gun violence in America, you have a really dangerous mix. There's too many guns. There's too easy access to guns, because that story, unfortunately, leads to more questions than it answered. Because obviously, one of the first questions we want to know is, where the hell did she get the gun? So while I am 100% in agreement with every brilliant thing the professor just said, unfortunately, all of these other elements are way more powerful than what parents can offer. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it 100%. I was extremely strict with my son.
Mhm.
And, you can call it authoritarianism or whatever. I called it trying to keep him alive. And we as a culture, although I don't even feel part of this culture, but the American culture has an obvious and chronic issue with gun violence and with depression. During the quarantine, even before the quarantine, the most drugs sold to deal with depression were sold and consumed in America. And when the quarantine hit, that number shot up 34%. So America is not coping with its emotions very well. So this is a multifaceted issue that is not being dealt with in any real way. And I fear that it's going to get worse than it gets better. And also let's take a look at the dysfunction, and this will be another conversation for another time, but look at the outrageous dysfunction. I've mentioned it before and I have to mention it again. 20 children ages 6 to 7 were murdered because of gun violence. And America went, Second Amendment.
They did.
This is a dysfunctional country.
Yes.
And this shooting from this young woman is not the problem. It is the symptom of the problem. And that's all I have to say for now.
Yeah. What is the average age of a sixth grader?
I believe it's 9.
Mm-hmm.
Sixth grader? No, sixth. 12.
12?
9, yeah.
Yeah, it's 12.
Yeah, it is 12. It's 12.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Man, that's unheard of. So, like I said before, we can obviously get into deeper conversations about this. I know the time we can shelve this. And I'm probably going to guest, like a psychiatrist, to go through the layers of what happens while children are being affected by this in the home and beyond. And of course, like I said before, very well about the violence of this country in general, just on GP, how this country is. So that, again, is a factor that we have to address. It'll be very nice to, once again, get an expert in here to talk about it. So any parting words before we break camp, Dr. Ron?
No, man. I want to give a shout out to our fearless leader, the legend, on assignment, wherever he's at. Hope he's safe and sound and everything's going good for him. And once again, applauding my intellectual brothers on the panel. Great job, fellas. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Of course. Everybody brings it. Professor, any parting words?
Continue to rely on funk intelligence. I'm done.
Okay. Make my funk a P-funk. I wants to get funked up. And of course, Francisco, a.k.a. the Chocolate Yoddah.
Whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. That's from Paul J. Meyer.
Oh,
that's right.
Man, I got now
you don't mess them up now.
That's so cool. I got to get me some shit like that, man. Man, yeah. I got to get me some shit like that, man.
That's it. That's a perfect note to end on. That's a t-shirt. Hashtag, I got to give you some shit like that. Boy, quit.
Love everybody. Love.
All right, so for Dr. Ron, for Professor Reggie Miles, the Chocolate Yoddah giving the shameless plug of his t-shirt. Street News Now every Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. on the West Coast. Five Guys and You will return next week. Also, our fearless leader will be with us as well. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel to subscribe, like, and share. Once again, also this Sunday, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We applaud you. We love you so much. Enjoy your day. That's right. We're going to make it do what it do. Kick your feet up. Enjoy your roses. Enjoy your strawberries. Whatever you like, you can have whatever you like. And we're going to make that happen. Everybody, take care. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care. Peace.
Bye-bye.